Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday show.
Hello.
I am Hammer. I'm joined by my two favorite Minions co-hosts, Genty Maxi.
Hi.
And Terry D. Mantis.
Hello.
My avatar is screwed up again. Fine on Rumble, screwed up on YouTube. I don't get it.
Yeah.
How you doing today, Terry?
Yeah, not bad. How about you?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Chad?
I'm good. I'm surrounded by birds that want to get into my apartment, so
Yeah.
Okay. I will fix the OBS screen here in a moment. It's okay if you're watching on Rumble, but I'll get it straightened out on YouTube in a moment. Before we get into the topics, go ahead and see who's in chat this evening. Managed to cover my chat screen for Rumble, so that's gonna be. Let me see if I can pull that up. Okay, here we go. THUR is always the first person in Rumble, so he was first again tonight. And then Green Badger without the outdoors, and then Brainor Hastic, that's OG Costin. And Round Hammer 117. Apparently the hammer virus is spreading. We got more hammers coming in. I like it. And I think that's everybody on Rumbly. Oh, Keywordam is over here now too. I mentioned at 9:30 that the Rumble stream was live, so we got some people cross-pollinating over on our side here. And then if we jump over to, I'm surprised that Jack's not here. He should be here already. You jump over to YouTube. Chat is quiet on YouTube. I don't know why it's so quiet over here. I guess because we're just getting started, but all the usual people are here, including Cynic and Talik. Yo. So people will obviously be jumping in as we go through the night. Got a couple of topics on the list. Not a lot, just a couple of quickies. So we probably won't get to everything here. And if we do get to things, it's probably not going to be much of a in-depth discussion. Everything okay, Terry?
Oh, I opened the YouTube, but it wasn't muted, so I had to quickly mute it.
Oh, okay. The first one is Piercely, and what I did was I took Pierce Morgan and Pearl and tried to mix their names, and it didn't work. Pearl was on his show, and it was her and a feminist facing off with Pierce moderating. So we'll get into a discussion about that. CNN is being accused of misgendering. The Philly shooter that killed 5 and injured 2, trans person. CNN is referring to the shooter as he, even though they are trans. France is burning down to the ground, and Macron decides he's going to blame gamers on this issue.
Welcome.
And then finally, Atomics is Fukushima in Japan has decided to dump their nuclear wastewater from the accident into the ocean. And what could happen there? What can happen there, right? So those are the things we have to cover, but we don't have to get into that.
Do you want Godzilla? Because this is how you get
Godzilla. And personally, I think that's a good thing. Who needs an asteroid? We'll just do Godzilla instead. What I did mention to you guys, and I haven't mentioned to anyone else, is I managed to pop the power to my broadcasting studio about an hour before the stream. I like to play a little bit of music before the stream. If I'm a little hypertensive, I'll play something that's a little melodic and slow or something like that. And if I'm kind of nodding off a little bit, I'll play something a little bit dancey. So I was like, all right, well, I'm kind of sleepy, tired here. Let me kind of wake myself up and get ready for this show. So I put on a song by a one-time hit wonder, Crystal Waters. And the song is called Pure Love. And
I hate it already.
It is. I guess I could probably get away with. I wasn't planning to do this, but let me jump out to my D drive.
Don't play it on stream if you don't want a copyright strike.
We get like 11 seconds, right? Is what we get for music.
I don't know what the rules are, but
I think it's 11 seconds, but I'll just play a few seconds of it here. Skip ahead. Skip ahead. Yeah, that's what I was playing before the stream. It kind of wake me up because it's pretty dancey. I mean, it's a heavy bass line and all that kind of stuff, right? So I figure, well, if I'm going to play it, I'm going to turn my sub amp on and really enjoy it while I'm setting up the stream and all that kind of stuff. So I turned it up and it was like, wow, this is good. And I turned up a little bit more. And I turned up a little bit more. I turned it up to the point where it was so loud, the bass was hitting so hard, it popped the electricity circuit in the room.
Oh God!
I was like, oh.
But the important question is: after you woke up, did you go?
me and Michael. Yeah, so I had to go downstairs in the basement and turn the breaker back on. So that was a lot of fun because I have a UPS, so the computer stayed up, but everything else in the room went out.
Yes.
So I'm like, all right, that's going to be a problem. Probably can't run the show this way. So I scrambled downstairs and took care of it. But anyway.
See, I was listening to music before the stream started too, but I was going down old music lines, like artists that I thought I remembered but hadn't heard since. One of those things where you like go on a car ride with your grandmother and your grandmother's like Austrian, so you don't really understand the music half the time. But a lot of them were just old American artists, like Viola Wills. She I think she was the original songwriter for If You Could Read My Mind. And I'm watching this music video with her, and I'm just like, lady, could you come back? Because she's this slim, pretty black woman in this amazing outfit, and I'm just like, we've got what do we have? I'm thinking of the fat lady. What's her name? Oh goodness.
Aretha?
No, Aretha was good. She had talent. I was okay with her.
Oh.
No, she was Viola Wills is American.
Viola Davis.
No, Wills.
Wills.
Yeah. There's a lot of black singers that I've forgotten about, just because for some reason the U.S. has forgotten that there was a lot of black queens back in the day. They forgot that they existed, so they need to create new ones and base them off of English queens.
So sometimes I'll open either like my iTunes or go to the YouTube music thing. And it's like, oh, I haven't listened to this stuff in years. Because it's like stuff that I was like really into and then just fell away from. It's like, oh man, I remember this song. Oh yeah.
There was a black artist, female artist, that my girlfriend and I were watching Clueless, and there's a part in the movie where the main character, the girl, is going on a date with a guy. He's very swank, got a nice car, all that kind of stuff. And they get in the car, and he's going to turn on some music periodic to the car, kind of like 50s, 40s kind of stuff. And he mentions a black artist, Billy something, not Eilish. I can't remember.
If it's Idol, he wasn't black or female.
No, there was a black female. I can't remember who the name of it was, but the artist's name was Billy something. And I'm sure chat will probably pick up and tell me who I'm talking about. But she was so clueless that she didn't know Billy was. She thought it was a guy because Billy is a guy, right? But it's actually a female artist. And he says, "Do you like Billy so and so?" And she says, "Oh, I love him." It's always and I laughed, and my girlfriend looked at me like, "What are you laughing at?" Because she didn't. Holiday, thank you, Keeper Dam. Billie Holiday.
Billie Holiday.
Yeah,
Right, yes.
and I laughed. I've seen the movie a couple of times, but it still makes me laugh when she says that because it's so natural that she's an idiot, you know. And I laughed. And my girlfriend looked at me and she's like, "Why are you laughing?" I was like, "Oh no."
Yeah.
My girlfriend's clueless too.
They did that joke in that 70s show where they were talking about Led Zeppelin, and like the girl wants to look like she knows what she's talking about. She goes, "Oh yeah, Zeppelin is so hot." Like meaning like the singer Zeppelin, like she's referring to like the lead singer is some guy named Zeppelin. It's like, no.
Pretty funny stuff. So I had to explain to her who Billie Holiday was.
It was actually one of those things where I sometimes find the thread of who made the original song is kind of amazing. You know, like especially nowadays, the remake of some songs has like 10 or 12 different generations, and it's just looking up who actually created you in the first place. Were they actually any good? And then finding out actually they were better than all of them, or sometimes they weren't very good at all. But
I actually did a thing where I found like the original versions of a lot of songs, and the originals are quite often better than the one that gets famous.
Yeah, I think we've discussed this before. Torn by what's her face? Australian singer. Edna Swap was the original, but apparently there was a band that did it before Edna Swap did too. It was a Danish band that sung it in Danish.
Right. Edna Swap wrote the song, but they weren't the first to perform it.
Ah, so this other Danish band did first, and then
Edna Swap released their own version, and then Natalie Imbruglia did her cover.
Yeah, and if you listen to them, they're different sounds because obviously they're different bands. Natalie's much more melodic, where Edna Swap is very garage band. But if you like garage band music, you're going to like Edna Swap's version much better.
Yeah, I definitely see the appeal in both. Like they're different enough that you can like appreciate. Okay, no, each has merit in different ways.
I'm big on mashup music, where they'll take like the vocals from one band and put it into the music of another band. They're able to get music that doesn't have the vocals, like instrumental versions from the original band, and then take the original vocals as a vocal track and add it to that song. So it actually becomes a new song because the lyrics are from two different songs.
I was surprised that a lot of Whitney Houston's songs were actually covers, because I had no idea that like I knew she didn't write them, but I didn't know that they were cover songs. I thought maybe like a team of writers wrote them for her, but no, there's a lot of her stuff is actually covering much older songs.
Whitney's big thing is that she was a vocal talent, but she wasn't she wasn't a songwriter.
No, like I said, I knew she didn't write them, but I thought maybe she had a team of songwriters writing songs for her rather than just covering old stuff.
You would think with her success that she'd be able to do something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, most of her stuff was covers.
Yeah. As I found out, when I was looking into it.
I mean, how many people have done "I Will Always Love You"? There's got to be 15 people who've published music for that song.
Yeah.
But hers, everyone knows, hers stands out amongst everybody else just because her lungs were like, incredible.
I'll always miss Whitney. I have one regret, and it's that some asshole introduced her to drugs. I know it's none of my business. Like, that's Hollywood. That's what they do. But
it's bound to happen.
Some idiot gave her drugs, and she fell more in love with drugs than singing. And I'll always be like, Whitney, why couldn't you fall in love more with your singing than the drugs? Because she looks so happy before the drugs. Like, you see younger versions of herself singing on, when she was just coming up, and she's just vibrant and she's glowing and she's so in love with what she's doing. And then she reaches the era of drugs and it's downhill from there. And it
eventually killed her. She took drugs, passed out in the tub and drowned.
Yeah.
You don't do that.
Yeah.
No. Brittany Murphy, same thing.
And this is what I mean when I say, like, the Black community's had queens for the longest time. It's just they lost a lot of theirs. Like, Whitney was a queen. Like, she died on drugs. Hey, you know what? A lot of queens did. And Tina, I still consider Tina to be a great Black queen. She might have been American. I know you guys don't have that over there. But as far as I'm concerned, she earned the respect of somebody that, she was beloved by people. Whitney, I hate drugs because of how it can make you lose everything.
All too common in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of singers get hooked on drugs too. I mean, Lane Staley is probably one of my favorite vocalists, and he was like very, very heroin addicted and died from it.
Yeah, most garage band, punk rock, they all very heavy into it. Even people that you wouldn't think, at least at the time, that they weren't. But like Miley Cyrus, before she became Miley Cyrus, she still was Hannah Montana, heavily into drugs. Even at that point, she had this image of purity, and she couldn't reconcile the two. So she went with the druggier side, the more scandalous side, and she embraced that side instead of remaining as chaste as possible.
And I don't doubt that, Tyre. Like, I don't doubt that it's family members that do it, because like I think of Michael Jackson. I don't doubt that it was a brother that introduced him to drugs. And in their perspective, it was probably safer for him to learn from them instead of some weirdo. But they still did it.
Opinionated Scotsman in chat mentions Amy Winehouse. She was a pretty good singer as well. And yeah, drugs did her in as well.
Yeah, drugs and booze. Yeah, she mixed hers, I think, and that's what got her. Don't mix them either. Like, don't overdo it, but don't mix them.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just say avoid drugs entirely. I mean, I get the appeal of them because people need to like run away from their problems, but it doesn't end well.
I oftentimes wonder if this isn't just like a random weird thing, but they have songs about the 27 and Me Club. And I can't help wondering if that's one of those warped things that they do. Like, you get into this weird mindset when you're pushing that fame, where maybe you're depressed and you're just not expressing it right. And the drugs are how you're coping.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything mystical about the people like tending to die at the age of 27. Like, if you figure when most people start their like entertainment careers, the natural trajectory, they're gonna hit the drugs and kill themselves around the same time. Like, they're just following a very similar timeline. I don't think there's anything, 27 is cursed. No, it's just that's usually when the drugs and alcohol tend to catch up with people who've turned that into a lifestyle. That's all it is.
There's also Hollywood too. Like, Hollywood likes to stir up shit that didn't happen. I can't remember the name of the guy. He was an actor, like, I think it was the 50s or the 40s, because it was black and white. He died early from a car crash. And they tried to claim that he was like drunk when he was speeding or something, because he was supposed to do a movie where he was a speed racer or something too. When he was in that car crash, they didn't mention that he broke his neck, and the ambulance themselves, when they were transporting him, didn't really strap in his neck, because I guess at the time they didn't have cameras back then either, so I don't know if they were supposed to do that and they just didn't. But the ambulance had an accident. Like, they bumped on the road, like they hit a road bump. And you know what they say, like, you can't move somebody with a broken neck. You can't. It's, you get them to the hospital and they can recover, but if they have complications, that's usually what causes death. That's how he died. Yeah. So, it was like, he's been dead for so many years. For so many years, people thought he died because he was a drunk, because that's like Hollywood in the news. And then you find out after the fact that, no, there was probably more to it. I'm not saying there wasn't drugs involved, because a lot of them had drugs. Like, a lot of the Canadians that I used to follow growing up were dead because of drugs. I don't blame you guys. I blame Hollywood.
They just happen to be in the States. Another guy that died that I liked, I thought he was an awesome actor, was Heath Ledger.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Died of drugs. He was in 10 Things I Hate About You and Batman. What's that?
Was he Australian? Wasn't Heath Ledger Australian?
Wait, you're asking me this.
No,
shouldn't you know?
We can look it up. It's not a big deal.
Yes.
I
Google.
was never a fan of the guy except for his performance as the Joker. Like everything else, I didn't really care about. So he was never on my radar to know if he was Australian or not. But
Mhm.
I've got a feeling he was.
Did you see him in A Knight's Tale?
Yeah.
I like that one. It was funny.
But have you
Was
seen him
great.
in 10 Things I Hate About You?
Yeah.
Those two movies
Yeah.
really caught my eye. I thought he did better in those movies than he did in Batman. Not that he did poorly in Batman. I still think he's the best Joker I've seen so far. But
I guess they just weren't my kind of movies. But I mean, they were fine. I didn't like hate them. It's just I wasn't won over to the Heath Ledger cause by watching 10 Things I Hate About You. It's just like it was just a generic rom-com kind of thing. It was just like not anything that stuck with me as being memorable.
yeah, Camel and Assassin in chat both say, yeah, he was Australian.
Okay, so he's from Perth. This
Also,
cool.
hey, Camel.
I think it's that he did have the talent for range. You know, like not everybody's able to do so many different roles and still be able to pull it off. And I think a lot of the regret was not being able to see how far he could go with it, because I think his wasn't like, it wasn't purposeful that he was on the drugs. Like I think he was taking the drugs as part of a response to his role.
Well, that's
Like,
what they
he took
said.
it-
He kind of got too much into the Joker and couldn't get back out. And that's
Yeah.
what caused him to go nuts and just overdose.
Yeah. But like I said, like he was also mixing drugs with liquor, and prescription drugs and liquor. Like it is one of those things. Like it's sometimes it's like dogs. It's not just that you gave them onions, it's that you mixed it with something else. And the mixture is actually what killed the dog. You know, and people are just this, like we're not dogs, but obviously if you mix things, it's gonna cause problems. I think that was what happened with him. But
Yeah.
at least that's what I'd rather go with that route, because one thing, I don't think he would intentionally kill himself. Like he was on the route to going places. Like I think he liked acting.
Yeah, I think he had demons, and playing the Joker kind of pulled them out and made them put them in his face, and he couldn't handle it. That's my personal opinion on it. But
JB in chat mentioned Bon Scott from AC/DC, died from alcohol. Like yeah, he was. I mean, I preferred Bon Scott to Brian Johnson as the lead singer of AC/DC. Like Brian Johnson had way more success, obviously, because Bon Scott died so early. But no, I much preferred Bon Scott as the singer in AC/DC.
yeah,
I like both, but there's the regret that the one guy died, and that's always going to be there.
I
So
would say,
yeah,
I think Brian Johnson had better songs, but I preferred Bon Scott as a singer. Like all the classic AC/DC songs are Brian Johnson songs because they didn't really like become huge until Back in Black, which was like the first Brian Johnson album. But if you go back and listen to the Bon Scott stuff, I think he was a better singer.
yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, that's how I felt about it. You know, you'll never know because he didn't live, and that's I feel for the guy who did live, because he's got to know that too.
I think it's crazy that Bon Scott and I have never coexisted. Like he died the same year I was born, so it's like at no point were both of us alive.
oh, there's another band that comes to mind is Van Halen.
Yeah,
It originally came up with David Lee Roth, who was not a great singer, but was a great
he's a good
showman. Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't. And then Sammy Hagar took over, who's a better singer, but just kind of stands there. So it's a trade-off. But I like both of them. But if I had my choice, I like David Lee Roth much more. It's much more fun to watch them when he was singing, even though he's not a great singer.
I only know one song from the Sammy Hagar era. I can't even remember the name of it. But
you're right. All their hits are with David Lee Roth.
Yeah.
Panama being my favorite.
I think it might have been Quiz, but someone mentioned one of the Sammy Hagar songs. I looked it up and go, okay, no, this is actually a very good song. I can't remember the name of it though. But as good as it was, I would still give the win to David Lee Roth because there's so many of his songs are
Yeah.
world famous.
Is that the kind of music you listen to, Jen?
Yeah, I kind of go through a range of different stuff. Like I just like to sing along to things, so anything that I can do that with. But I did like a lot of AC/DC when I was a kid because it was one of the few CDs I would steal from my brother. I didn't like everything he listened to. I like some rock, but some rock I'm like, if I didn't understand what they were talking about, I was like, you're not for me. And he liked to put them in my Teddy Ruxpin, which was always weird.
I have fairly broad musical tastes. As long as, like, the only thing I don't like is rap, hip hop, that kind of genre. I'm not a fan of that, but pretty much most other things, there'll be stuff I get into.
I think my is much more scatterbrained than you guys because I can listen to Nightwish, and I can listen to
Nightwish is awesome.
Yeah, which is operatic rock, I guess how you would classify them. And then I can listen to
what's it called? It's
50 Cent and just be just as happy either way. And they're probably at opposite ends of the spectrum. Then I can listen to Van Halen. I don't have any problems, moving from, but I don't have really a genre where I can say this is the genre I like.
Well, I can't say that I dislike rap because I did like a couple. I liked Tupac when he was alive. I wish he was still was, but he's not. I liked. I can't remember names. I should because most of these guys are. I think it was Biggie.
Biggie Smalls.
Biggie Smalls. I liked him when he was alive.
Most of the rap songs I like are like joke songs, like "Treat Me Like a Pirate" is like obviously not a serious song, but I think that's fun. But the Donkey Kong rap, the theme song to the Mario Brothers Super Show, like these are not serious songs, even if they're like rap songs. I don't mind those, but
here's the thing though.
Not for me.
I always liked the radio version, so I never really saw that as being necessarily like hard rap, because it was like the stuff that went on to MTV. That stuff came across as like rap, but like pop rap. There's a difference between listening to what Snoop Dogg was singing about now as an adult than the fun stuff that he had on the radio. Like re-listening now as an adult, I'm like, I wasn't listening to rap.
I just remembered the genre for Nightwish, which is symphonic metal.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's just like I said, if the music wasn't something that I could really like understand, which a lot of rap is talking about American culture, whether or not it's your culture or not. It is.
It is American. Now. It didn't used to be that. But Rapper's Delight was not about American culture. The original rap back when I was, back in the 80s, when I was a young man, rap was much different than it is now.
Thinking back on it, I did like that song "Tricky" by Run DMC. Like that's probably counts as rap.
They did one with Aerosmith too. "Walk This Way." They did a version of that with him.
But I like that for the Aerosmith, not the Run DMC. But "Tricky" I did unironically enjoy, and that's a rap song. There's a couple of Eminem songs that Stan I think is quite good, and was it "Lose Yourself"? Those two are pretty good.
"Lose Yourself's" really good. I really enjoyed that song.
So there is some rap that I enjoy, but it's very, very few compared to my appreciation of other genres.
I could listen to Sugar Hill Gang and I can listen to Exhibit and be perfectly happy with both of them. And they are the opposite ends of the rap universe. The original 80s rap that was just about, let's see if I can make two words rhyme, to the social structure of what Exhibit does is a whole different world.
Does MC Hammer count? Because I love that song as a kid.
Yes, it does. It's not really rap, but it is.
It's pop rap.
Well,
it's more pop. Yeah.
It's like how we weren't really talking about the French, but because of my mom really liking Celine Dion, and I don't hold any grudge against her for it, You know, I don't hold a grudge against Celine Dion because my mom would play 8 tapes because she had one of those play tapes. And I moved out of home and I was like, yeah, she's all yours, Dad.
She's another strong-voiced female vocalist. So she fits in the same genre as Whitney Houston and what's the girl who has a 4-octave range?
Mariah Carey.
Mariah Carey is another one with, you know, just a massive talent, just vocal structure and everything like that. There's nobody who can hit the whistle range like Mariah Carey. It doesn't exist. Nobody can do it.
Apparently, McHammer is a hip hop person, not a rap person. So
Okay.
I don't know the difference between the two. I will say, "Jump Around" by House of Pain is another song I really, really like.
Jump Around. I don't know if anybody would know that song. I know it. And actually, the funny thing is,
let me begin.
MC Hammer's Hammer Time, whatever that's not really my favorite that he's did.
You can't touch it. You can't touch this.
You can't touch this. Not my favorite. You think it would be, but actually, he did another song called "Pray." I thought was much better song.
Pray with an A or an E.
Pray.
Okay, pray is in like speaking to God, not as in hunting.
Yeah, the lyrics are sometimes we pray just to make it today.
Yeah, like people are saying hip hop and rap are the same thing. They are.
No,
I believe there's probably some distinction that more knowledgeable people can identify, but to me, they're the same thing.
No, hip hop, house music, they're all much different.
I just figured what I was listening to wasn't necessarily distinctly rap because, yeah, I've listened to other Snoop Dogg songs since. And there's a difference between, you know, the nicer stuff that he was making for the little white ladies and the stuff he was making for his friends, you know. You can tell the difference between the two when you listen back to it. But I wouldn't listen to that stuff necessarily because, yet again, it wasn't geared towards me. Respect to Snoop Dogg. You know what? He would agree. It wasn't geared towards me. So, yeah, it wouldn't click. But it doesn't mean I didn't like his music. It's just...
Here's a couple seconds of "Pray" I can get away with. Now that's the very beginning of the song, so you don't get to hear the chorus and all that kind of stuff. But that song, if you compare the two, I think this is much more orchestral, much more complicated than "You Can't Touch This." "You Can't Touch This" is very popcorn bubblegum. 4 chords, very easy to play. You know,
it's pop rap. It's like it's rap with a pop.
It's very sugar coated. Yeah. So
and I didn't want to say it before, but since it is Tier that is the one who identifies the difference between hip hop and rap in chat, I think my initial suspicion was right that it is a black person is going to know the difference.
That's terrible and hilarious, but terrible. That's funny. I don't know. How did we get on the thing of music? I don't know how we got into that. You guys want to touch on some of the topics we have, or just fuck it?
We probably should.
It's 9:30. You know what I got to do? It's 9:30. Get the music poll out.
Oh yeah, good point.
That's what I got to do. I wish Rumble had the option for letting me do the poll, but I'm going to have to do it. You guys go ahead and you can keep talking about music. I'll get the poll started.
Assassin of the Grey in chat says, "You Can't Touch This" is Super Freak. Yes,
it is.
It is.
It's sampled.
Incredibly heavily sampling that song.
Yeah, absolutely. It's basically the same song with different lyrics. It's probably why I like it so much.
I wouldn't go that far, but it is very heavily sampling Super Freak.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, he had permission to do it. So
yeah.
Because they're friends.
No, but if you look at the credits, Rick James is actually listed as a co-writer of the song. So
yeah, well,
he got his acknowledgement. He got his royalties. He's not being hard done.
But they are real life friends too.
Oh well, that probably helped.
Yeah.
It's unlike Mr. Van Winkle, Vanilla Ice. He did not have permission, but he added a note, so it was okay.
Okay, here comes the poll outro music, and ask your community. I was going to add Blondie's Atomic in because one of our topics is atomics, but
Yeah.
I thought that was a little on the nose, so I passed on that.
I do like Tom Petty, but I voted for Linkin Park.
You're poisoning the well.
No. I mean, they don't have to listen to what I say. They can vote for whoever they want.
Oh,
I'm just
one of
saying,
the.
I voted for Linkin Park.
Okay, Jim, what did you vote for? Did you vote?
I actually haven't yet. Let me see.
Vote. It's your responsibility as an adult to vote.
No. If Pearl gets her way, Jen won't be able to vote in this poll. So,
all right, I voted.
Way into the actual topics through that.
Did you
listen? The thing with life is that you could vote for something and still not win, so it's okay. And in all honesty, I was voting on, like I said, I was watching old music. So David Bowie did crop up at one point.
Bowie.
Yeah.
Oh, are you making fun of? Are you making fun of him, or is that your accent that's coming through? Because his name is Bowie.
It's probably my accent. It's my
okay.
Adorable. I drive certain Brits a little bit insane with my pronunciation of certain names, but I've always had a thing for David Bowie since he was in the Labyrinth, because as a 13-year-old trying to introduce that movie to my friends, all they could focus on was his crotch. And I've presented him just a little bit since, because I loved his movie, but all they wanted to talk about was his dick. And I was like, it's a good movie.
It is a good movie, but I mean,
David Bowie was blessed, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but there's a reason that his crotch in that movie is a meme. It's like it's quite noticeable.
He was a blessed gentleman. I will say that. But did you actually see the Piers Morgan thing, the video?
I didn't saw a 5-minute clip. I don't know if that was the whole thing.
Well, did you see it with Aber and Preach, or because they did a piece on it?
I watched the Aber and Preach video after I saw the clip on Piers Morgan's Twitter.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I watched it from the Black Conservative channel, because I've been following him lately.
I left several comments on the Ab and Preach video.
Yeah,
if you got there and look, you'll see a lot of posts. Yeah, you should see there's a lot of posts. It's because, I used to trust Ab and Preach because they talk about fresh and fit and stuff like that, and they would be pretty.
They were pretty fair. They would give credit where it was due. They would call out when it was necessary.
Yeah, but they've got a real hard on for Pearl. I don't know if you've noticed it.
Oh, yeah. They fucking hate her.
But they fucking hate her, and they look for things to hate her about. And even when they compliment her in a way that's obviously coming from a place of hate, because they showed a video of her on the Piers Morgan show, and she's wearing this very loosely fitting red dress that kind of looks like a strawberry. And Ab and Preach pointed it out. First thing, before anything else did happen, the first thing you do to diss her is they go after her looks.
Yep.
And then when the clip comes up and they show her and she's on the panel, she looks pretty. Her hair is all done. Her makeup's all done. She's got a pearl necklace on, black top. She looks great. And they pointed that out. Oh, now suddenly you look great. Oh, well, good for you. Yeah. I was like, even their compliment was sarcastic. So they just fucking hate her outright. And I'm not sure if it's because she's doing so well that they don't like her. Because if you listen to the points that she makes and you go just at the points, not the stats or all that kind of shit, but just the points that she makes, even Pierce, if you watch the entire thing at the end, she beat the feminist handily. And Pierce agreed with her on everything but one topic. Everything else he agreed with her on. But if you watch,
he had to give her credit because she was finding her points.
If you watch Ab and Preach, though, they cut it to make her look the worst possible way they could.
Mm-hmm. Oh, naturally, yeah.
I think part of the reason they're doing that is, so it's going to take a while for it to be noticeable, but I think they're losing a little bit in terms of the argument, in terms of the man thread. Like there was this time where it looked like they were trying to push a podcast that didn't go anywhere. And there's that sense of like ABBA really wants to control the conversation, and Pearl pisses everybody off. Like it's not just Evan Preach. She's pissed everybody off. I stay out of that because I just saw it as a high school bitch fight, and it's kind of fun to watch from the side if you have popcorn, but I don't want to get involved in that. But
I like Pearl quite a bit in terms of her content. I obviously don't agree with everything she says. Some of it is silly, but I mean, what she's saying is common sense. She just has a way of saying it in a way that rubs people the wrong way, which I'm assuming is deliberate.
There's a part in that. Go ahead.
Well, it's just a lot of the reason people go after her is because she doesn't have a relationship. She isn't married. You know, she hasn't had really good relationships in the past, or at least they haven't worked out, which fair enough. Not every relationship is going to. But I think a lot of what people are taking out of context is she flat out is telling you that she has requirements for what she wants in a relationship. So if she hasn't settled down at 27, that's probably because she hasn't, what she is looking for, she hasn't met yet.
There is one thing that I will grant the critics in terms of Pearl's hypocrisy. She said she would not see a therapist who was not married because why would she take advice from someone? Like, why would she take advice from someone who can't make a successful relationship themselves? By that metric, no one should take Pearl's advice because she has not.
Well, according to Pearl, she doesn't give advice. She points out the facts and lets the rest of the people in her show give advice, but she herself does not say, you should do this, I would do that. That's not what she does on her show. She says, well, what do you think about this? These are the stats. What do you think? And she lets them discuss it. According to her.
It could also be that she's stating her opinion, which, fair enough. She's swaying that in and out, but she's also just stating her opinion. Should you just be taking advice from her, though? Is she actually telling you, take advice from me? Because if she isn't doing that either, then no, don't take advice from her. But she is
I say that there should not be any single person that you take advice exclusively from. Like, you should take advice from multiple sources and like think it over for yourself and decide what is actually best for you. Don't be like, well, Pearl said it, so I've got it. No, don't be that's stupid. I think to what Pearl says and either agree or disagree, but think about what she's saying for yourself. Don't just, knee jerk.
And I think ding, 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 you've pretty much got it. Like, she is literally stating her opinion. She is being a host on a show where she has other people stating their opinions. And you can go and search the internet. There are tons of people giving their opinions. So right there, you can go through them and decide what works for you. But
we give our opinions on this show every Wednesday.
But that doesn't mean that people shouldn't challenge her on her opinions either, because that's how, well, for one thing, she has to hash out her side too.
She usually brings receipts, though. It's very hard to go up against Pearl because she has proof. She has evidence. So
it's not just the receipts. Like, I was so frustrated with that interview. For one thing, they've used that feminist before, and she's failed before too.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things from the left where they're like, well, if we just pick a pretty girl, she'll win on this one. And it's like, she had no interest in learning. No interest in learning at all, because Pearl was willing to bring receipts. So she could have looked up those receipts to find out if she was full of shit or if she was leaving something out. She had no interest in learning about people. And even if it was just an outlier story, she had no interest in this. And it's like, so even if she's got all these points, you don't care. It's just you have these feminists are pointing out they have their opinions that they will not sway on. And maybe Pearl's the same way, but she's allowed to have her opinion that she doesn't want to sway on either then.
Yeah.
Adam says in chat, howdy, Hammer. Howdy, Adam. You've been having a lot of these hot takes on Twitter recently. And you're right. Knowing now that Twitter is a little bit more free speech than it used to be, I'm able to say things now that I couldn't say before. It's not like I never had these opinions. I just wasn't allowed to say them. So
as I mentioned in the pre-show, I got dinged for using the brand of cheese that relates to black people, and I successfully appealed
In
it thanks
Australia.
to in Australia.
Yeah.
Well, but I used that word on Twitter, which I won't say on YouTube because they're not as forgiving.
Right.
But I got dinged for it, and I successfully appealed because I said I was not being hateful. I was accusing someone else of being hateful, and they agreed, and they restored my tweet. So I was
Yeah.
actually impressed with that.
Yeah. Elon has made an impact. Yeah, the interview starts off with this clip, and then right away Pierce goes in saying that you're the female Andrew Tate. What do you think of Andrew Tate? And this is the key thing he says. Do you believe in everything he says?
Well,
and that's the
hopefully not.
stupidest question on the fucking planet. Does anybody ever believe everything that someone else says? You would have to be an idiot to believe everything because people make mistakes.
I will say sometimes yes, that is what cults basically are.
Oh yeah, well,
and
right.
I would say if two people have identical opinions on everything, then at least one of them is not thinking for themselves.
Well, you can see where the stress lines are building. And yeah, I know I'm switching the topic a little bit, but I do think it's relevant because they're going flat out after Anna Kasparian right now because she's willing to talk to the other side, because I think she's finally hit not the wall that the MGTOW talk about. I think she's hit the wall of realizing that she's dealing with people who do not want to sway at all. And that's what I mean by a lack of wanting to learn. She's at least opened up the door to learning about what the other side is saying and realizing that, no, actually, she's kind of closer to being on the same page than she thought. And just knowing that is enough to get her and Shank almost kicked out of the show that they own.
I forget who it was, but someone said on Twitter that Anna Kasparian is basically following the same trajectory now that Dave Rubin went through when he made his transition to
I read that too.
Young folks.
Yeah.
Like, do I necessarily trust her right away? No, I would watch to see what she does because, you know, narcissists are still people who like attention. But I think she's been burnt so many times by these people. And I think that it reminds me of when Chris Ray Gunn was dating Lacey Green and just how fucked up her side was to her about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just, you know, even if she never
agrees
with...
He's a lefty, too.
Yeah. Oh, he's very left. Like, he's just not a feminist. He's still very left-wing in his beliefs.
You know, to this day, I do not doubt that even though she doesn't agree with the left on anything, or no, not the left, the right on anything, that she knows that she will have a better reception from the right just because they might disagree with her. They might say mean words, but they weren't nearly as heinous as what the left is. And the left is easy. They will play it off as being righties. You can tell when they're in the chat trying to troll because they're retarded.
In fairness, I will say it's not that the left is worse than the right. It's that the left knows they can get away with it and the right knows that they can't. If the political situation was reversed and the right wing had carte blanche to just be as big of an asshole as they wanted, you would see the exact same problem in reverse.
Yeah.
It's just that at the moment, the left knows that no one's going to stand up to them. So they can be massive pricks to everyone they want to, and it's going to be fine.
And it's not holding out. It isn't. Like,
no.
The cracks have been in the wall for the longest time, and people can only take so much crap from people before they don't give a shit anymore. Like when you're sitting there going, you know what? Jail time doesn't seem so bad if I can fuck you up enough.
Yeah.
You know, like I think Russell Peters had that joke about the kid complaining to dad about not smacking him, and then dad being, well, so if you're going to report me to child services, just remember it takes them at least an hour to get here, and you have an hour to suffer before they do.
Yeah. Someone's going to get hurt real bad. I've seen that bit.
Real quick, Gutenberg's in chat. I haven't seen Gutenberg in a long time. Gutenberg's the only YouTuber I know of that lives in the same state as me. So,
according to Gutenberg, I hate the Blackax.
Blackax. Is that
I've got nothing against Blackax, whatever those are.
and then the assassin of the gray says Pierce Morgan is a moron, and you're right, he is. The first time I was exposed to Pierce Morgan, Ben Shapiro was dismantling him on his own show, made a total ass out of him. And he has a horrible take on guns because he's British and he doesn't know any better.
Yeah.
Nothing against the British people, but they don't know what it's like to be a country of gun owners. They just don't know what that's like, so they can't relate. I mean, even the two of you can't really relate to what it's like to be here.
They used to be a country of gun owners, and then they handed it over because for some reason they trust their government. But every once in a while, they find a really old one, and they're like, "Look, it's from like the 1600s. We should take it to a museum before we go to jail."
I'm far less pro-gun than like most Americans that I know on Twitter. Like a lot, because to me, I've never grown up around guns. They're still scary to me. Like if you're in a country where gun ownership is kind of just normal, then you're going to have a very different attitude to guns.
Yeah.
Than someone like me, where the closest thing to a gun that I've held is like an air rifle at a carnival to like shoot the little paper target, and if you can, that's the only gun I've used.
I have held in my hands a 22 30-06 as far as rifles are concerned, a Glock, and it's my favorite gun, and now I can't remember its name. Holy shit.
So,
I got no
Sig,
idea,
6 hour. Jesus, what the fuck is my... This is what happens when you have a mental block. When you have a stroke. I'm going to blame it on the stroke.
Yeah.
And for me, guns are like nothing. Guns are like a spoon, you know?
Yeah,
there's a gun. It's right next to that spoon. Who cares? You know, it's just...
Cynic is pointing out that that's a city thing. Everyone out bush has guns. That is true.
Yeah. Well, you guys would know.
Well, I've used a couple weapons before too. So when I was a kid, my dad was into archery, and so we went to archery shoots, and my brother went on, like, they had a kid run for kids his age, and I got to learn a little bit too. And my schooling did have a short little term of archery, and I don't know if they were doing that to England or something, but it was kind of weird because I've never seen the US really have an archery program outside of specific schools. But I learned one of two things. I can hit a target. My glasses, when I was introduced to them in elementary, fucked up my vision a little bit. So every once in a while, I would hit the butthole of the deer on the target. And then I discovered I could hit the target on my neighbors dead directly, and they won McDonald's. I didn't. Liars. Fucking dicks. But I could hit a target. It took me a try or two just to realize that I had to redistance my vision, because when you have a strong prescription, you figure that out pretty quickly. But I liked it. I liked archery. I could still do it today, but it's not fast enough to beat a gun, which is why people have guns.
There's some interesting facts about that. They say that if you're within 20 feet of your assailant, a knife is much more deadly than a gun.
Well, if you can toss it,
that's true.
So I will, at one point, when I save up enough money, I will have an AR of my own, and I will probably have an HK 1911.
The other weapon that I've used, which I wouldn't take lightly at all, and my brother doesn't have it anymore. But when we were kids, we're out in the field. It's archery season. He had the kind of sling that had a brace to it, so it made it hard. Like it was a tougher elastic to pull.
Mm-hmm.
And he did have the hard marbles. You're using that to hit and kill squirrels, things like that. So I think he did. At least once or twice, as far as I know. But I did try that on a target too, one time, just to see if I could pull it. And yeah, that could kill somebody.
I do find bow hunting to be like really cool.
Well, I'm just saying, Dennis the Menace, if he actually used that on a person, could have killed people. Don't underestimate a rock.
I think a lot of people underestimate just how damaging an arrow or like a slingshot, like a rock from a slingshot, can actually be. Like in movies, they kind of, you know, oh, they just like they pull the arrow out of their arm and keep fighting. Yeah, it's not like that in real life. You don't get
No. Because arrows aren't the kind of arrows that you use for target practicing. Arrows are in real life, they're barbed and they have poisons and all kinds of bad things associated with them. So
it's one of those fun things with England where, yet again, they will every once in a while find the ending of where a war took place, you know, between sections of England. You know, they had multiple wars in England, and you will find a skeleton with the arrowhead still remaining because that's how they died. They couldn't remove it. And the barbs are so crazy, like with the hooks and everything. You're like, yeah, that thing ain't being pulled out. If it's pulled out, they are gutting him. He will be gutted if you pull it.
Yeah, that reminds me of something. Assassin of the Grey says Goliath found out the hard way about that rock. And I saw a tweet the other day that said a rock killed Abel, but a rock also killed Goliath. It's not about the rock. It was a gun message, but put in a way that wasn't really about guns. And that kind of jogged my memory of it.
You take a rock to the head, I don't care who you are, it's probably going to do some serious damage.
Yeah, that's at least going to hurt.
Well, I mean, it depends on the size of the rock, but the kind of rocks that they used in slings back in, biblical times, you don't want to get hit in the head with one of those.
No, you don't want to. You don't want to.
No.
Yeah.
Like, warfare is something that, they thought it out. There was a point to what they were doing, and it was to kill you.
And armor was based on the weapons of in use at the time. So, like, back in the feudal days of Japan, armor was made out of paper because paper stopped bows. And then when bullets started coming around, paper wasn't good enough anymore. Now we have to have...
But also the kind of armor that you would use against, like, a sword is very different to the kind of armor you would need against a mace, because one of the reasons that maces became popular is because they just crushed the armor that was designed purely to deflect sword blades. Right.
There was chainmail and then there was plate mail. And they had advantages over each other, depending on what... Yeah. You kind of had to know what your enemy was going to use to protect yourself appropriately. So...
It's also in warfare, you always have to know where you are. And that's why the War of the Roses, that one battle that they overlooked, because the reason France lost so badly was because of the landscape. Like, it was hill slopes, so they had crowd control problems. And then the mud there is like, it's like cement when you get stuck in it. So if you're wearing heavy, your own armor is fighting against you. And the Brits are quite happy to just stab you in the neck, and they did.
Yeah, it's not just terrain; it's also temperature and general conditions. Because the Germans went after the Soviets, and they're like, "Oh, this is awful cold. I think I'll get out of here now." You know, you have to take into consideration all the things that are going to affect you when you're going to be on the battlefield. So
yeah, for sure.
Anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot to it that I'm grateful that I've never had to do in real life, and I'm glad that my imagination is enough to keep up with that. But at the same time, though, I'm tired of Ukraine.
Yeah. I think we're all tired of the Ukraine.
But let's move on to another topic too, because I don't know.
It is actually 10 bells. So how much longer do you want to go, Jen?
Well, I got a little time.
You got a little time?
Yeah, I had a little nap. And
we talked about Pearl, and I mentioned CNN, but I don't think there's much of a discussion there. They're just being stupid. The other options are France and Atomics. Do you guys have a preference?
Well, France...
I just want to take credit for burning France down as a gamer. So
France looks like there's more to it.
Yeah. So maybe we should go with atomics because we're low on time.
I would actually say that if we ever really get lucky, and we probably won't because Sam L's on a time limit because of time, but if we could ever get him in to talk about it, because I think there's so much misinformation with what's going on. Like, I know Ezra from The Rebel is there, and like he's trying to come from our perspective, and I'm like, sir, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Like so the only thing I saw that I saw in reflection to what happened over here was the police officers had that military look to them. Like, ours went from cops on the street to what looked like military cops. So what I saw from France, yeah, they have military cops on the streets. So yeah, I could see things getting inflamed. But at the same time, though, I do think it's their own fault, because you have a lot of people in your country who don't want to be there, hate you, or hate how they feel you're treating them. Like,
they want to be there, but they want to bring their culture with them.
Yes. Like, there's a disconnect there. And it's the same solution that everybody has. It's either you fit here or you don't. And if you don't, go home. You need to start doing that, because it's causing them problems too. I don't think a 19-year-old should have been shot. At the end of the day, I don't care what culture you are. 19-year-olds shouldn't be shot by police officers that look like they're military cops. You know?
Well, did you see the video of the kid getting shot by the cop? That cop didn't look military to me. I mean, to be honest with you, none of the French cops they look parochial. The colors of their cars, the outfits they wear look very much like a kindergarten kid. They don't look serious. Compared to America, when you see a cop in America, you're like, oh shit. You know, they're wearing black or dark blue, and they're not fucking around. But these guys look like they're kids from 10th grade with pop guns. They look like nothing.
Yeah, but with all due respect, Hammer, I would still see the French cops as looking military in comparison. You know, I am throwing shade at France. I'm kind of throwing shade at Europe. Like, I've seen German cops before where I was like, could you be ragingly, flippingly gay? No offense. Like, no offense. And I mean none. Like, I shouldn't know what you do in your bedroom when you're at work. Okay? I wouldn't have taken them seriously either. I would have been like, Sparkle Fairy, yes, you could kick my ass because, yeah, a Sparkle Fairy could, but you're still a Sparkle Fairy. But when I'm thinking of like a military, like, yeah, when I think of a regular street cop from the US, yeah, they do look more tough. But there's a difference in European cops and American cops.
Oh, I'm sure. Apparently the guy who shot him was a motorcycle cop, according to the Assassin of the Gray.
Okay. See, I don't know, like Europe is so different from us that when I see them doing stuff, I'm just like, I'm glad my great great ancestors moved. I'm so glad that they moved.
He only shot the guy once, and he didn't really have the option to aim like you see most American cops. They'll back up and they'll put a certain amount of distance, and they'll put the hands with the gun on top, kind of a proper. This guy just kind of like had his gun there and just shot once. Yeah, like I don't know. The guy tried to run him over. The guy tried to flee. In America, if you try to flee, they'll shoot you.
Yeah. I don't doubt that. You know, it just seems like one of those things where the kid probably spooked himself, like he didn't have the right papers, which, yeah, he might have gotten a fine for that, but I don't doubt they could have worked that out. He's a 19-year-old.
Well, he was blowing through stop signs and traffic lights and all that kind of stuff before this all happened. Yeah. So it wasn't like he wasn't going to get a ticket. He was already going to get a ticket, and then he pushed it too far. I don't know. I'm people give me a hard time because I'm very black and white about cops. And it's to a lot of extent, it's true. If a cop does his job properly, I'm 100% behind him. If he fucks up just a little bit, I want to bring charges against him immediately. I don't give cops any, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't give them any leeway. I guess you would say. They're either I see them as very literally very black and white. Either they did it right and I'm 100% behind them, or they did it wrong and they should be in prison themselves. I draw no quarter with these people, that they have to be good.
I do think it's fair to hold police to a higher standard than you would hold a normal
Damn right.
citizen.
Damn right.
It's what makes it so complicated, because like from what I saw from that video, it didn't look like the kid was running him over. He looked like he just ran. Like, he might have been in the wrong. You're not wrong in that regard. I didn't see that part of it. I just saw the part with the, you stopped him and he's got, and then I saw the shot. But when I saw him, the kid drive away, it looked like that split instant, like, I'm going to run, book it.
Yeah.
I didn't see him. It didn't look like the kind of driving away like he was running him over. So if that's what the cop was coming from, no, he didn't. If he shot him because he was trying to stop him, I get, maybe that's the thing that I wouldn't think of. I just
the cops in America had this whole thing where they'll tell somebody that they can go, and they'll stand next to the window, and when the person goes, their side view mirror will bump the cop, and a cop will fucking flip out, pull them out, arrest them, put them in the back of the cop told him you can go, but then the cop kind of leans in to make sure the car hits them.
Yeah.
And then goes after the person. So when a cop says you can go, I make sure he clears my car before I pull out.
Yeah.
Because I know they play that game. And that might have been what he did here too. It's from a position where you can't see the hip of the cop. You can't tell how close he was. He's there. He's got his gun in the window, but how close is his body? Could he have taken a step back and been clear? I don't know.
And that kind of stuff, yeah, that kind of thing would inflame me, because it doesn't help the situation. Like I said, the kid should be held accountable for the crap he did. I'm not that
well, that won't happen now.
But no, he's dead. But that's the thing. There, as a cop, I do expect them to de-escalate, not escalate. And
too many cops don't do that. Too many cops try to escalate if they possibly can.
And I don't want them being cops then. Sorry.
No, you're right. They shouldn't be cops. Not only should they not be cops, but if they commit a crime as a cop, they should never be allowed to be a cop ever again.
I agree with that.
And I'm not saying this like I don't understand that, yes, cops deal with a lot of crap. Like, even when the left is like, well, they're dealing with a crazy person. Yeah, they're dealing with a crazy person. Don't act like that's easy to do. Crazy people can be really verbally and physically abusive, and I've seen my cops deal with it too. Like, they deal with street people all the time. And like, I have some that I claim as being favorite cops, because I see them deal with so much crap, and they are the gentlest guys with what they deal with. And yes, I have seen them push a guy's face into the ground and been like, well, the dude kicked him.
Yeah.
Dude kicked him. So, I understand what they deal with, but yeah, it's a tough one, France. But at the same time, though, if they're burning shit, send them home. If they're burning shit, send them home. They have to understand that they live in a country where you can't just burn shit.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The Assassin of the Gray said, Hammer, stop speculating and watch the video. I did watch the video. I don't know if there's more than one version of the video, but the video I watched on TV was maybe 20 feet away, and it was from the driver's side of the car, and it was facing to the right. The cop was it was shot from the passenger side, and the cop was on the driver's side on the other side of the car. So all I could see was his head, part of his elbow. And then when the car pulled out, I saw a flash. That's the video that I watched. If there's another video that's in more detail that I haven't seen, then I didn't even know it existed. So that's like the third time in like 2 days where I've been accused of not watching video. Quiz told me I didn't watch the gun video, and I got into a little bit of an argument with somebody online about the Pearl video. So I did watch all these.
I just I'll own that I haven't watched the whole Piers Pearly thing. Like, I can talk about.
It's not that long. It's only like 9 minutes.
Okay, well then I might have. Like I said, I just saw what was a review of it, and I wasn't sure if it was longer than that. But
Yeah.
most of what she said, I agreed with. I do recognize the feminist she was arguing with, and yet again, she isn't going to win her argument if she isn't going to learn about what the other side is saying. And at the end of the day, they think that we don't listen to what it is that they're saying. We do. It's just I have to take breaks when I listen to what they're saying because it's garbage. It makes my head feel kind of gross, and I feel a little dirty, you know, so I have to pause and then come back to it later, and that might take me a day.
Let me make a couple of points about this that I wanted to bring up before, but we got off the topic. First of all, Abbott Preach, the Abbott and Preach cut, Abbott accuses her of interrupting. She's interrupting. I went back and watched the video with a pencil and paper. Pearl was interrupted 20 times, 4 of them by Pierce. The feminists, 11.
Yep. And Pierce does that. Like it is his show.
But you're missing the point. The point is Abbott and Preach said that Pearl was doing all the interrupting and she wasn't. She was doing half of it. And nobody interrupted Pierce never interrupted the feminists, but he interrupted Pearl 4 times. And the overall number, the count, 20 to 11, who got interrupted the most? Pearl by far. Yet Abbott and Preach made it look like she was the bad guy.
Oh, they've got such a hate burner.
They really do. They really do. And there was another point I wanted to bring up. Oh, the only thing that he didn't agree with was the voting thing. And I think it's just because I don't think Pierce really understands how voting works in the United States. So I think she spoke over him and he couldn't figure out what the fuck she was saying. But the point that she was trying to make about voting was back in the day, it was 1 vote per household. Yes. So the man and the woman in the house would agree on what the vote should be, and then they would vote. As opposed to having one person vote for, we'll just use American terms, one person vote for Republican and one person vote for Democrat, and them knocking each other out of the voting process by doing that. Nullifying each other's vote. You don't want to do that. You want to come together and have one say that makes a difference. And he couldn't conceptualize that. It was just above his head. He didn't know what to say. And then there's the whole thing about being petty, where this girl points out that Pearl's a virgin, or wasn't a virgin. She says, you can't really hold men. Your process doesn't work because you're not a virgin. You couldn't get married. It was 100% petty, even so much that that Abbott and Preach both said, yeah, that was petty. And then, of course, the look on Pierce Morgan's face, the camera that happened, and then the camera pointed at him, and he's looking directly in the camera, and he's like, I'm not going to say a damn word. Because the 2 women are going after each other about who's a virgin. What I don't understand is why Pearl didn't go back at her and say, I bet you my body count's lower than yours.
But the thing with the Abbott and Preach thing is they might have admitted that what the feminists did was petty, but they then followed up by saying, but I'm there for it. Like they were on board with the pettiness because they hate Pearl that much.
Right.
You know what's amazing about this though is the more that Pierce does this kind of stuff, the more he's technically red pilling himself. He's always going to be a liberal. Just because you've been red pilled doesn't mean you're not still a liberal. But it's the fact that there's so much that we're saying that's not unreasonable. He doesn't get everything because there are cultural differences between England and the US. Believe it or not, You'll talk about stuff and stuff will just fly over the head, and I'm in the same boat because I'm kind of a mix between the 2 of you, even though I shouldn't be. I really
you should watch it. There's a part where they talk about Pearl calling a girl fat and divorced, and the whatchamacallit, the feminist is like just fucking loses her mind, and Pearl said, "Well, was she fat? Yes. Was she divorced? Yes. I was correct, and you can't handle the truth." She did a very much what was it? A Few Good Men, Tom Cruise and A Few Good Men. You can't handle the truth. She got, that kind of thing. You should watch it. It's entertaining. It's only, like I said, it's only like 9 to 12 minutes or something like that. It's not very long. I think 9 minutes just to the interview. And if you add on the 2-minute lead in for the clip that they played before the interview, I think comes out like 11 or 12 minutes. So go watch. I tell everybody who's listening on chat and stuff like that, go out and watch that. All you have to do is go into YouTube and say, Pierce Morgan, Pearl Davis, And
yeah, you'll find
also to make Pearl look bad, they started using her first name. She's been going by Pearl ever since she was in grade school, but now they're
Yes.
making sure to include Hannah Pearl
Which is
Davis, just
Okay.
because she knows that she doesn't want to be called that. They make sure that they put it in there. That's how hated she is. Everybody's not listening to the message. Everyone's attacking the messenger and how the message is being delivered, and not listening to what the
Yeah.
message is. So
I agree.
now I'm getting
That's-
upset.
Well,
I'm getting
that's
angry.
why that's why I wasn't really engaging in it, because it did seem like a high school fight. And like I said, there are lots of things that she's probably said that you can argue with her on in terms of the conversation, but it all goes to personal attacks. And I'm like, that's kind of where she's going to keep winning.
They keep going
you're-
after her looks. That's what
Like,
bothers me the
And her-
most.
And her being single.
Yeah.
And she hasn't always been single. It's just she hasn't gotten what she wants. It's not too different from a guy who's really kind of weeding out what they really want. And you look at the list of things that she kind of wants. Yeah, she wants a lot, actually. You know, she has a list of expectations, and that's going to make it harder for her to find her one true love. It might not work out for you, Pearl. I'm just saying that, you know, the dating advice thing does apply to you too. You know, sometimes you have to compromise, but
I don't know if I mentioned this last week or not, but Pearl is leaving the UK.
Yes.
Did I mention that last week?
Yes, you did.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she's leaving the UK because she can't find a date there that she likes. She doesn't like UK men. She's coming back to America. She's moving her shop back to Chicago because she likes American men. So she's doing what she needs to do to try to get a boyfriend.
I think a lot of women right now are on the move, and it's just how we go about it that's going to be interesting to watch, because what the feminists have done is they've raised the bar so high that nobody can match it. And every time you would think that you could match it, they're going to raise it again. And that means it's a never-ending cycle. And it's the same as the BLM, it's the same as the, you know, trans activist crap. It's always raising the bar with this crap. And everybody's just like, you know what? I'm done with it. Fuck it. I'm done with it. It's like the LGBT part of the LGBT movement. Yeah, they're done with it too. We just want to go back to what we were kind of doing before that was actually working, that wasn't so mean and aggressive and angry all the time. And the feminists aren't the route. So, you know, maybe Pearl is the extreme version of what she wants to do.
Yeah.
She's not the only one doing it. Like, there's lots of women doing the housewife thing, and they seem to be perfectly happy. It's not for everybody. They're not making a cult out of it. And these women
Have you seen that trad wife girl that's on TikTok?
Yeah.
She's gorgeous, man.
It's,
Holy crap.
She's also pointing out something that a lot of women don't understand, that we've actually lost in terms of what women actually provided for the household. And I actually went through the list of things that even my mom used to do, you know, and it wasn't that long ago because my mom's still alive. But, you know, it's like little things like learning how to sew. You know, like Weeble can do this kind of stuff. When you learn how to sew, you fix socks, you fix underwear, you fix pants, you fix buttons, you fix zippers. And you would think that doesn't do a lot. It does. In terms of the outcome of your clothing, it does. It stretches out your money. It's the same as knowing how to clean your house when you don't have to hire other people, or you don't have to buy expensive shit to do it because you've upkept it. It saves you a lot of money. It also saves your house from degrading. You know, so that saves your man a lot of money from having to fix things. So yeah, he might have to come home and fix some things because house needs upkeep. But her maintaining that by keeping an eye on everything means that, you know, all that stuff gets done properly. So your house doesn't fall apart. Then she also knows how to cook. Maybe she even owns a garden, like she's got a little greenhouse or something. So she's growing it along with making all the food. So you're always eating healthy. He always has a proper lunch. He doesn't have to buy fast food. So he doesn't get fat like everybody else in the office. He's got better nutrition because his wife actually gives a shit about him. And no, it does make sense that you might not be able to do that and a job. You know, it does make sense because that's called, that household is the job.
Yes.
And that's
Well,
the payout.
you got to add in kids on top of that.
Yes.
So
that daycare,
imagine a man who has to do the job, then come home, has to do all the housework, and then has to deal with the kids while she sits there and watches, videos with her wine glass on YouTube. You have to split the work. You have to for the house to run smoothly. I mean, after he gets done his day where he's away from the family for 8 hours and then has to do sweeping the carpet, doing the dishes, all that kind of stuff for 3 or 4 hours, those kids are basically not going to see him. He needs to have time to be able to be with his kids, and he can do that while she's cooking dinner.
And this is part of where I think it ties into the classism that maybe comes from communism. I don't know. But you realize that it's rich people that don't do those kind of things. It is rich people who hire people to cook and clean for you.
Sure.
And so these women are thinking like they're the rich women from, and even the housewives. They don't understand that show that was based off of housewives, that's how they get that extra money, is because they have a housewife.
There's two sides to
retards, but
there's two sides to that story, because these rich women who have somebody cook for them and somebody clean for them usually have a nanny to mother for them as well.
Yes.
So they're out on Rodeo Drive buying a new, bauble. So there's two sides to that story.
Well, it's the housewives of today are not the same as the ones from the past. Like,
no, they're not.
I yet again re-educating myself by listening to stories from the past. You realize that, she might not have been the business president, but believe it or not, the education that she had allowed her to be a business partner with him. So while she was working at home, she was working on his business for him. So she might be setting things up for him. She might be setting up dates for him so that he could go on meetings with people. She might be sourcing out. She wasn't sitting at home just fiddling her thumb. She was, in fact, a part of his business.
Women and men are not meant to be equal. They're meant to be complementary.
Yes. And they leave that out when they talk about that kind of stuff. And I'm like, that really depresses me. It's a revision of history. It leaves out work that women actually legitimately did in the past, acting as though they weren't appreciated for it. And what did they need a medal for every second? They got appreciation for it.
Yeah. I've been arguing with people for the last 2 months about this on Twitter, and everyone's saying I'm wrong. I'm starting to get really tired of it.
It's because it ends up being a little bit ranty, but I'm going to be fair. We've been listening to the left rant for
far too long.
So why not? I wouldn't want to do it all the time because it makes you an unpleasant person, but honestly, show some respect to our ancestors. Our grandparents did great, amazing things. Some of them were douchebags. Lots of them were douchebags. But a lot of them did really great things, and it would be nice to show appreciation to the people who weren't all assholes,
Well, we are coming up on 10:30, not 11:30, 10:30. So now we're getting to the point where I'm starting to get tired, even if you're still spunky about it all. So I got
to be responsible at some point. I could be a little bit hooky, but
I'm hungry, so yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. And I'm tired of seeing Jack in chat, so that's another reason to get out of here. Anyway, I should probably bring up the closing notes for the show. Oh, I can read it. That's the intro notes. I want the outro notes. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, as always, for chatting with us tonight. If you can't wait for... That's too loud. I can't turn it down anymore. If you can't wait for the next Wednesday's show, remember, the Minions are live every evening, including weekends, with most shows starting around 11:30 p.m. Eastern, 7 days a week. Post and start times are listed in the description down below. Don't forget our pre-show on Rumble, which actually started at 8:30 tonight. And we said some really nasty things out there. That was pretty awesome. So make sure you don't miss that next week. And that usually starts around 8:30, 8:40, something along that line. So we'll also be back on YouTube at 9 o'clock next Wednesday, as usual. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. We'll see you again next week. Have a great night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.